Hi, hello, vanakkam, and welcome back to yet another episode on Little's Law YouTube channel. So, in this video, which is going to be part of this day, the end-to-end performance testing. So, initially we saw about how to do performance testing, where we saw about how to do the test planning and the best practices and strategies of doing the performance test planning, and then we saw about designing step by step. Then we saw about how to do the workload modeling, and we saw about how to record a web script on day 5, and then we saw about how to do an estimating of the effort, and we also created an API script using JMeter on day 6. So what are we going to see today? So before we move on to the video, this is me, Vasan Shanmugam. I request you all to subscribe to our channel if you have not subscribed yet. Okay, so let's now see what are we going to see in this video today. So today we are going to see about the naming of the transactions, and we are going to see about the parameterizations, how to do parameterization for the scripts that we have created. So let's open the script now. So this is going to be the script for us, which is script 1. And yes, we have got the script. So this is the first script that we have created previously. So this was the very first script that we created, which is entering the store URL, and then we clicked on sign in, and then we did the enter credentials and clicked login, and then we clicked the fish, clicked on product, clicked on add to cart, clicked on proceed to checkout, enter payment details, confirm button, and signed out. So before we move on to parameterization, let's just make one more change, which is we will need to change the name of the HTTP request so that we can see them clearly, or we do not make any mistakes while we collect the report. So let's change the name accordingly for all these transactions. So I'm just copy pasting it to the HTTP request headers for each of them. Then let's complete it real quick. So in fact, we have discussed about one of the shortcut or one of the Windows hack in one of my previous videos. If you have missed, please do check my playlist, which is the Windows V button, which is if you click on Windows V, you can automatically see whatever we have copied in our previous, or we can see whatever we have copied in the clipboard. So let me show you. So if we click on Windows V, you can see here whatever I have copied, everything has come here. So this is the one video which I have separately created for this. This is one of the hack. In case if you have missed it, please do check that in the playlist and my video channel. So let me just copy paste and let's close this one. Then let's move on to the parameterization. So let's see. So before we move on to parameterization, we need to identify what are the values that we have to parameterize. And there are two things which every performance tester or engineer must know, which is the first thing is parameterization and then the correlation. So the parameterization, so what is the difference between parameterization and correlation? So parameterization is something which the test person or the tester or the developer who gives as a manual input, or we can use the variable manager or the parameters to give it as an input. But the correlation is something that comes from the server, which is dynamic, which comes from the server. So parameterization is something which the tester gives during the execution, and the correlation is something which gets dynamically generated from the server. And that's the difference between parameterization and correlation. So we can define, or we mean the testers can define the values for the parameters, but the server defines the value for the correlation. So let's now choose what are all the values that we have to parameterize. So we are now in the sign in form. So we have got this get transaction. So most of the times our inputs should be in the post transaction. So we have here username and password, and we might need to parameterize. So let's note it down in the document. So this is quite important, and let's go to the script. So scenario 1, and then we'll have to give the parameters that we need. So test data, and here it's the username and then the password. In fact, it's even comfortable if you are able to keep the step again. So for example, here's the third transaction. So what we can do is, this is scenario 1, and under this the step 3, where you need username and password. So if we can collect this automatically, this will help us to talk with the stakeholders and get it set up for us. And then the next step, so we have fish, so we might need, but this, since this is part of the script, so we are going to just test only the fish here, so let's leave it as of now. And then here we have this value. So there are two things in either way, so we can even make it as a parameter, or even we can do it as correlation. So in this video I will show you how to change this, or how to define this as a parameter. So let's choose this as a parameter, and in the next video I will show you how to do this as during correlation. So this step is 5, and then the product ID. So this is going to be step 5, and then the value which you're going to do is product ID, and then coming back to add on cart. So again we have the working item ID, which is in step 6. So step 6, which is going to be working item ID, and then we have the next step, which is nothing. So we have nothing here in the proceed to checkout, since it is almost a get transaction, so we have nothing to pass here. And then coming back to the payment details, so we aren't going to change anything here since everything is part of the test. And then click confirm button, and then sign out. So we have nothing. So far we have collected, so we need to parameterize these 3 values, which is the username and password, the product ID, and the working item ID. So now let's see how to create or how to collect the data. So in this example we could see I have got the username and password. So in case if you have the scenario 1 where every test data which you might need, if you get collected it from the stakeholder, something like from the functional team, or from the automation team, from the functional testing team, or from the developer, or from the business analyst, then you're good. Or in case if you might need to create them, yeah, you should be ready to create them. You should have to create scripts to create them. So in this scenario I have got the username and password for next 2 users, and then the product ID you can see here. So for example, like here, if I sign in as user 1, you can see here the fish is here, and then the product IDs is here. So I could kept it here, and then the next one is the working item ID. So in case if you use the angel fish, then we will see EST1, EST2 as the item ID. So let's keep it up here, EST1 and EST2 for the items 1, EST-1 and EST-2. And then for the next user, for the next item, it is going to be EST-3, EST-3, and then for the third one, it's going to be 4 and 5, EST-4, EST-5, and then for the last item, it's going to be 2021. So let's make it out, EST-20 and EST-21. So these are the working item ID. So let's map it up here. So this is for the step 6, which is going to be the working item ID. So let's now see how to parameterize this. So for that, let's create the variable file. So let me go and create a notepad file, and this must contain, so this is the first step in creating the parameter. So we'll have to create the username and password. It's going to be 1 1 2 2 2 2, and then 3 3 and 3 3. Let's save it. So we will have to save it inside the bin. So let me go inside this Apache JMeter and bin. In case if we are creating this in a separate folder, we can create it there, or else you can keep it safe in the bin folder. So let me save it here. It's going to be user name password.txt. Then let me save this file, and now let's create the next parameter file. So for this one, I'm going to create in this manner where I'm going to have both the product ID and the working item ID in the same file. So let me create it this way. So sorry, it's not going to be a new tab. Okay, let's create it in a new tab. And the column name is going to be product ID and then the working item ID. So here we can see for the first item, which is the FISW01, it's going to be EST-1, and then again for the first item it's going to be EST-2, -2, and then for the next item, which is for 02, we're going to have EST3, and then for the next item, which is FW01, it's going to be EST-4. Again, the same one is going to be EST5. Then finally, for EST02, we have EST-20 in EST-21. So in this way, we can create, so it's going to be product ID and working item ID. Let's save it. So far we have created the first file with the username and password, and then the second file. Even in fact, we can even have all these in the same files, but it will be more of a kind of a static, so it's better we can distribute them. But we have to again make sure that, see, for example, if we are separating this two columns into two separate tables, there are chances where the item must be searching for the first angelfish, but we do not have the right working item ID. So that's the reason we have, or I have made this change where I have kept both of these in the column. So for example, we might not be changing, or we might not have a mismatch of the columns. So let's now go to JMeter and we will see how to create the parameter files. So let's start our parameterization process now. And again, let's go back. So here we are in the step 3. So in step 3, so this will, in fact, this documentation will help us to easily identify the steps. So in step 3, we are going to parameterize the username and password. So let's go to the script. Step 3, let's add the CSV dataset config, which comes under the config element. And here, let's choose the file name. So it's under the files. Okay, let me just choose it. So I have moved the files under the sprint1 folder, and this is going to be username and password, and then the variable names, which has to be comma delimited, which means we have to separate them using the comma. So the first one is going to be username and then the password. Ignore first line, only used if variable names is not empty. We are not going to ignore it since we have the username and password as the first line. So let's keep it up as it is, like we'll keep it as false. And then let's don't make any changes as of now here. And let's go to the script and let's change it to $symbol, username. Then again here, we will change it to password. So now we have renamed the username and password, and then let's go to the next step, which is the step 5, the product ID. So let's go to step 5 and step 6, in case we have both of them the same. So let's choose it here. In fact, if we are having something common, we can have it as a whole. So let me add the config element here. It's going to be CSV dataset config, and then the file name is going to be product ID and working item ID, and the variable names are product ID and working item ID. Let's copy it for now, and then let's go to the step 5, and here we are going to change it to product ID. And then again in step 6, it's going to be working, let me paste it. It's going to be working item ID. So before we move on to the next step of validating, let's just have a quick run through this step. So we have separated the values using the delimiter, which is comma. In case if we are using a semicolon, we can choose it as semicolon, or in case if we are using a slash, so any form can be used or chosen here. And then the recycle on end of file, we have chosen true, and the reason is if we are come to the end of file, we can recycle so that we can reuse the files, and that's the reason we are using the recycle on end of file. The UIF stands for end of file. And then the stopping thread on end of file, so in case if we want to stop the execution at the end of the file, we can choose true so that the test will stop. And this in some cases will work for us, because in some of the scenarios where the data cannot be reused and the validation fails, so we can use this so that we are good to stop the test at the end. And then we have the sharing mode all threads. So I've chosen sharing mode all threads. Let's save this script and let's do a quick validation now. Let me enable this before I start the test, and then let me save it, and let's add a view results tree as part of this listener. And we all know we can use this only for the during the validation and not during the load testing. We have to disable it. So this is since validation, I'm using it, and the thread group is 1, the ramp period is 1. And let me start the test. Overwrite existing files, and let's go to the view results tree. And let me choose this to HTML because I like the view of it, and in fact we can easily recognize the data or whatever that comes in here. So I can see it here. So the first screen and then the second screen where we are entering the values. In fact, this is more comfortable in seeing the values here. So in case if I am entering any values, I can see it here. Let me go through the request and let me see the values. So there is an error here. Let's see what it is. Before that, let's see. So in step 3 we are entering the credentials. So let's see the request body here, the values, post data. So this is not being correctly passed. So here you can see the username is username and password is password, so which means we have not passed in the right manner. That's why it has failed. So let's go and see why it has been failed. Let's see, the URL encode have been unchecked. Let me just check it, and let's run this step again. So here, even in fact for this step again, it was unchecked. Let me just check whether that was the right reason for failure. In case if it's not the right one, we can run the test again and we will see why does it fail. So I've started the test again, and again it is in the HTML mode, and let's see what is happening now. So we have got the response body, and I guess we have did it right this time. Okay, again it is wrong, so we are not passing the username and password. Let's, okay, I think yeah, this step again we have failed. So let's now see why it is failing. Yes, so I have found what was the mistake. So here we are supposed to ignore the first line. So that's what the mistake I have made. I have just taken it in negative way. So what I have to do is I have to ignore the first line, so which is true. I have to ignore the first line because I have kept the variable names there. I'm really sorry for making this mistake. So let's go back and validate the script now. Really sorry, I just missed it. And in case, yeah, there are chances where most of us might miss it. So please make sure that we are doing it in the right manner. So in case if we are using, so let me stop the test. In fact, we haven't changed it here. So let me change it here as well. Let me refresh it. And then let's run the test over an existing file. So this time, I believe we must not do any mistakes. We can click on sign in, the response data, and the next step is going to be the sign in step. So let's wait for some time, and yes, we have did it right. So we have passed the right value. Let's check it once. Yes, so we have passed the right value, which is the username and password. Then let's go to the next screens, which is the fish, and then we have chosen the right items. We are in the product page, and then we have added the right item as well. Click on add to cart. So in this way we have did it right. So let's do a different one. So let's choose or let's check whether we have did the right one. So what we're going to do now is let's change the parameter variable. So here all the items have been the very first item, so let's change the item to a different one in the value here. So for that, let's do multiple iterations now. Let me clear this and let's do multiple iterations. So what we are going to do now is let's go to the thread group. The loop count is going to be 3. So let's run 3 iterations and let's see how does it work. Let's go back to the view results tree. Let's start the test. So the test has completed and let's now check whether our parameterization worked fine. So in steps 3, we have got welcome 1. In this test 1, test 2, it's going to be welcome 2, and then in third one, it's going to be, let's check the value. So here we can see we have used the value 3 and we have used the password 3. So let's again go back to the other values. So in script 5, let's see the values here. So request. Then let me go to the response data here. So here we got EST1. EST1 is here, and then we have got EST2 here, and then in the last one we've got EST3. So in this way we have completed our parameterization. So in the next video we will solve this same scenario with correlation. So I believe this video would have been very useful to you. So until we meet you in another interesting video, it's bye from us and Little Slaw.